Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our driver ratings for the Chinese Grand Prix. Before we get into it though, remember to like and subscribe, and a huge shout out to the members: Dakota, The Joyous James, Robin Myers, Cinnamon Strudel, Michael Johnson and F. They are the members on YouTube and Patreon. If you want to become a member, click the link in the description down below and you'll be able to see this Friday's video right now. It is the top 10 worst starts to championship winning seasons. That'll come out on Friday, but if you remember, you can go see it right now. But let's get into the driver ratings here for our first sprint race of the year. And if you haven't seen one of our sprint race driver ratings before, we give them a score between 1 and 10 for both the sprint and the race, and then we'll find the average. It's a weighted average with more weight towards the main race than the sprint. That average is their score for this weekend. So let's just get into it, starting with the Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber Boys and Gabriele Bortoleto. So in the sprint, started 14th, ended up 4th, of course got caught up in that incident with Doohan, I believe it was, on that last lap. So he should have had a few more places, realistically. Wasn't his fault for the spin there. So I gave him a 5 out of 10 for the sprint. For the main race, though, started 19th, went off in the gravel trap early on, came back, managed to keep on going, went for an early pit stop. I think he still only did a 2, which is impressive considering he pitted on lap 1. But then went from 19th, ended up being 14th, obviously benefited from the 3 guys who got disqualified, and trust me, we'll get onto them later on. But what was, I think, a decent recovery drive overall. So I gave him a 6 for that, because, I mean, he's in a Sauber, for God's sake. So overall, it is a 5 out of 10 for Bortoleto. Cross to his teammate now, Nico Hulkenberg. Again, in the sprint race, he also got caught up in that Doohan incident. He went from 19th to 19th. I gave him a 4 for that because he was behind them anyway on the last lap on the penultimate corner. Then, in the race itself, started 12th, ended up in 15th. Rather anonymous race for him, really. I don't really know what happened there. He somehow ended up behind his teammate who had that incident at the start. Not entirely sure what happened to him there. Not the best ever weekend for Nico Hulkenberg. I'll give him a 6 for the main race, so he also gets a 5 out of 10. Alex Albon now, who had a very good weekend. Sprint race, he qualified 9th, ended up in 11th place. I gave him a 7 for that one. But in the main race itself, he started 10th, got to 7th, a 10 out of 10 for the main race. Fantastic display yet again from Albon to get it into Q3 and get some really good points here for the Williams team. So overall, though, it is an average of a 7 for Albon. Across to Carlos Sainz now, who, again, not great for him. Sprint race was really bad, so he qualifies 13th, and his tyres just get destroyed. The only person who did a pit stop in the sprint race, he is actually the one who benefited from that little kerfuffle at the end of the race, gaining 3 positions on Bortoleto, Doohan and Hulkenberg to come home in 17th. Even still, not a great race. I gave him a 2 out of 10 for the sprint. Then in the race itself, he qualified 15th, and for me, he is the one who gained the most from these disqualifications because he finished in 10th, which means he has got his first points for the Williams team. But overall, still not a great race itself. I mean, I'll give him a 7 for the main race, which gives him an average of a 6. Isaac Hadjar now, and I feel so sorry for the Racing Bulls guys because they drove so well and the team let them down for the second race in a row. So Isaac Hadjar in the sprints went from 15th to 13th. Not too eventful for him there. I gave him a 5 out of 10 for that one. Then in the main race itself, qualified a fantastic 7th, beating Yuki Tsunoda. Had a very good race. Then they went, right, here we go, you're on a 2-stop now. Thanks to the disqualifications, he actually finishes in 11th, but he should have been in that top 10. He should have come away from here with points on the board. It wasn't his fault. I gave him a 7 for the race, which is an average of a 6. A similar story for Yuki Tsunoda. Sprint race, he qualified 8th, finished in 6th. So the actual only points the Racing Bulls have got this year are when there was no strategy involved and they just let the drivers drive. I gave him a 10 out of 10 for the sprint race. Fantastic result for him from there. Then in the race itself, qualifies 9th, is going very well, gets stuck on that 2-stop. Then on top of that, the front wing just disintegrates and he has to stop again. So in the end, he finished up in 16th place. No true reflection on his ability or his drive this weekend. I gave him a 7 as well. So overall, he has an average of an 8 for this weekend. Now the stars, though. The stars of the Chinese Grand Prix main race is Haas. And what a difference a day makes, because both drivers didn't really have the best sprint race. Ollie Behrman started in 12th, ended up in 15th place. So I gave him a 5 out of 10 for that. But in the main race itself, qualifies in 17th, finishes in 8th. Was on the alternative strategy as well. Made the hard tyres work really well at the start of the race. Got some fantastic overtakes throughout it. Said ciao to Liam Lawson on his way past. Has to be a 10 out of 10 for Ollie Behrman for the main race. An average of an 8 out of 10 for Behrman. And then a similar story for Esteban Ocon. In the sprint, 18th to 16th. Gave him a 5. Main race, 11th to 5th. 10 out of 10. Fantastic results for Esteban Ocon. Again, an average of an 8. Haas walking away from this weekend incredibly happy, and understandably so. Alpine now, currently the only team on the grid without a point on the board. Jack Doohan did not help with that this weekend. So, sprint race, qualifies 16th, ends up last because he went for that move at the end. He should have been, 17th? Around about that, so didn't really lose much going for these big huge moves at the end of the race that were worth nothing. I gave him a 2 out of 10 for the sprint. I'm normally quite generous to rookies, but I thought that was just such a silly error to make. Then in the main race itself, he went from 18th place to 13th place, which, looks good on paper, but then you realise that, that's because 3 people were disqualified and 1 person didn't finish. So, realistically, still not a great result there. I gave him a 5, though, for the main race. I was feeling a bit more generous. Overall, though, it's an average of a 3 out of 10 for Jack Doohan. Then we get to the first of our disqualified people, Pierre Gasly. Sprint race went from 17th to 12th. I thought very good display there. The Alpine, nowhere near as fast as I thought it was going to be at the start of this year. Yeah, so 17th to 12th. I give him an 8 out of 10 for that. I thought it was pretty good. Then we moved to the main race. From 16th to 11th, but then afterwards was disqualified for the car being underweight. It's so annoying for them, because if they hadn't been underweight, they'd have 2 points on the board right now, because the other guys would have been disqualified. But that's not how it works. And how it works here on Stop and Go F1, the rule is, if you get disqualified from a race, you get a 0. Because how can you really rate their race if the car was illegal? Because you're not competing on the same field as everyone else. It's been the rule now for 3 years, and it continues to be the rule. So for the main race, Pierre Gasly gets a 0 out of 10, giving him an average of a 3. Aston Martin now, my favourite guy apparently, Lance Stroll. My goodness, what is happening here with Lance Stroll? He's just turned up this year and gone, you know what, I'm just going to be really good. So he did really well in Australia. Then we get here, the sprint race, he goes from 10th to 9th, which, is just outside the points, because only the top 8 gets points. But let's not forget, for the majority of this sprint race, he kept Lando Norris behind him in the fastest car on the grid. He just did it, like it was nothing. Walked away with nothing for that one. Then in the main race, he goes from 14th. He also starts on the hard tyres, goes on the hard tyres the longest out of anyone, works them really well, gets the car into a really good position, initially finishes 11th, finishes with nothing, and I was quite disappointed for him. These disqualifications come through, now he's 9th, getting more points on the board for Aston Martin. As of right now, the only driver scoring points for Aston Martin. No one had that on their bingo card. I gave him a 10 out of 10 for the sprint. I gave him a 10 out of 10 for the race. So on average, Lance Stroll, for the second weekend in a row, gets a 10 out of 10 from me. What is going on? Where has this Lance Stroll been for all these years? This is a fantastic display. Every single race he's been in the top 10 so far. It's great to see. I hope he continues it. Meanwhile, a complete different story for one Fernando Alonso. So, in the sprint, qualifies 11th, finishes 10th. So, behind Lance in both sessions. Even though I gave him a good score. I gave him a 9 out of 10 because I think the Aston is a struggling car and he could put it in a good position. Not as good as Lance Stroll did, but still a good position. Then in the race, 13th place he qualifies. Brake issue near the start, DNFs. I gave him a 5, just like an average there. He just felt, why not? 5 straight down the middle, can't really judge it there. So overall, it is a 6 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso, the man who is DNF now from both main feature races in a row, sits dead last in the championship as we stand here right now. So looking to fix that in the Japanese Grand Prix. Across to Mercedes now with Kimi Antonelli. An interesting one. I was singing his praises a lot last time out in Australia. Still a decent result here, but not as good as then. Sprint race, he goes from 7th to 6th. I gave him a 7 out of 10. Then in the main race, this driver of the day performance was going from 8th to 6th. I also gave him a 7. So overall, it's a 7. I thought it was just good. Well done, Kimi. Keep up the good work. Meanwhile, this man, in the same car as Kimi Antonelli, the driver of the day, George Russell in the sprint goes from 5th to 4th, then in the race pulls out an incredible qualifying lap to go 2nd to split the McLarens, then gets his 2nd podium in a row, finishing 3rd. In the sprint I gave him a 10, the race I gave him a 10, overall it's a 10. Perfect weekend for George Russell. I don't think anyone could have got anything more out of that car. He did a fantastic job, and like I said in the race review, if Mercedes can bring up a decent upgrade for this car, he's a championship contender. He started the season perfectly well, and I think he's up there. He's doing really well so far, and hopefully he can continue. Someone who isn't doing well is this man. We are 2 races into the season, and there are already rumours that Liam Lawson is going to be dropped from the Red Bull team. And I've even seen people say not only is he going to be dropped from the Red Bull team, he's not even going to Racing Bulls, he will just be dropped from Formula 1, which I think is incredibly harsh, but he is having a dreadful time. So in the sprint, he qualified 20th, and he finished up in 14th place, which, to be fair to him, is his best recovery yet. I gave him a 4 for the sprint. Then in the main race again, he qualifies last again, then finishes up in 12th, another big benefactor from the triple disqualification there, because realistically he should have been 15th. I gave him a 5 for the race. Overall it's a 5, and I do feel that is still quite generous for Lawson, who is having an awful time. And if the news did come out that he has been dropped by Red Bull before the Japanese Grand Prix, I wouldn't be too surprised, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But that being said, at this point, if you are looking at Liam Lawson's performances and seeing how badly he is doing and saying, yes, it's just because Lawson's a bad driver, you haven't been paying attention. Because how many drivers have we seen now in that Red Bull seat come in after having a very good performance, not do well, then leave and have good performances? Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Sergio Perez, now Liam Lawson. I mean, look at Albon right now. Albon is doing incredibly well, and he couldn't do it in the Red Bull. Pierre Gasly has had a fantastic career post-Red Bull. He couldn't get it done in the Red Bull. Sergio Perez is one of the greatest midfield drivers we've ever seen in Formula 1. Force India, Racing Point, Sauber, all the things we saw him do in those cars. He was fantastic. And now he is out of Formula 1 because he didn't do well in the Red Bull. Liam Lawson was dropped into the Racing Bull seat at a midpoint of the season, and he has got in there and did incredibly well. And now he's struggling. It's not the driver's fault. It is the car. There is something fundamentally wrong with that car, and if it is this whole thing of only Max Verstappen can drive it, just run with one driver then, because Red Bull are currently ruining careers, absolutely destroying careers. And you know what? It's just like a few years ago, Max Verstappen won the championship, won the Constructors' Championship by himself. You just go, forget it. We'll just run one driver in a minute, because I don't know what the solution is. That's the issue. Because do you go, okay, Red Bull, change your car so it's easier for both drivers to drive? And if they do that, does that make Max's performances worse? Because then you've got two drivers who are doing okay. Right now you've got one driver who's doing incredible and one driver who's doing incredibly bad. If you make the car a bit more average so they can both drive it equally, do you then have two average performances, which is not what you want either? But what you have here is a team with a incredible, possibly the greatest of all time, Max Verstappen in the car, who is sat there, and now the rumours are he might be leaving. And in the second seat, you've got Liam Lawson, this young upstart, this next big thing for Red Bull, who isn't doing very well. If you drop him and throw him in with someone else, and then who knows, you might have to change them again, and again, and again, then all of a sudden you've got Max here. What if he leaves? Then you have to get two drivers in, and they both do awfully, and then you're at the back. It's such a mess for Red Bull, and I have no idea what the solution is. I don't think the solution is dropping Liam Lawson from Formula 1 after 2 races, but we will see how it goes, because this is a big mess. But here's Max Verstappen, everyone, so don't worry. Verstappen, in the sprint, qualifies second, finishes third, gave him a 10 out of 10. In the race, starts fourth, finishes fourth, gave him a 10 out of 10. No one could do better in that Red Bull. Everyone knows that already. He's still in championship contention, which is mad, because the car's all over the place. But, you know, we saw the Ferraris looking so quick at the start of the weekend. In the race, even before the disqualifications, he beats both of them relatively with ease. At the end of the race, he's the fastest man on the track. They're saying maybe he could have pushed a bit earlier and he would have been on the podium. I mean, it's just madness. The Red Bull team is madness. Nothing about it makes any sense. And I have no idea what they're going to do next. But that is Formula 1 in 2025. Oh dear, here's Ferrari. So, let's start with the good news. Lewis Hamilton, sprint race pole, sprint race win, 10 out of 10. Lewis Hamilton qualifies 5th, finishes 6th, gets disqualified. And of course, that means we give him a 0, which is an average of a 3 out of 10. So, oh dear. I mean, it looked all so good at the start of the weekend, but then there was no pace in the second half of the weekend. And even in the race itself, Hamilton, who looked so quick, was slower than Leclerc, who had a broken front wing. I had no idea what was going on here. And then there was the team orders as well, although they were a little bit misrepresentative on the broadcast because it was Hamilton's idea to do the team orders. And the way they played the team radio made it look like Hamilton was disagreeing with the team orders, when in fact it was him who actually came up with the idea to do it in the first place. But overall, what a mixed weekend. I don't even know if Hamilton will be walking away from this quite happy because, you know, he had that sprint race win, but then since then it was just all downhill. Really quite bad. And it's not over because, of course, it was a double disqualification for the team. So Charles Leclerc qualifies 4th in the sprint, finishes 5th, gave him an 8 because he was quite considerably off the pace of Hamilton, but still got an okay result. In the race, qualifies 6th, finishes 5th, and then gets disqualified. It was a fantastic race until it wasn't. I mean, you know, his own fault for getting that damage at the start. But from there, managed that damage really well. Like I said, was faster than Hamilton with a broken front wing. Looked really good. But yeah, the car was underweight, so that's a 0, and he also gets an average of a 3 out of 10. So there we go. Well done, Ferrari. See you next time. Here is the man of the hour, though, the man with the power, Oscar Piastri. Sprint qualifying 3rd, sprint race 2nd. I've given him a 9 for this, and I didn't give him a 10, and I feel a little bit harsh for it. But when you see the true pace of the McLaren, you got to think that, you know, he should have been doing a bit better than 3rd and 2nd. I think he should have at least been on the front row, and he was quite considerably behind Hamilton. Maybe they were managing their tyres at the start, but I think he had the pace to win it, and he didn't. So I gave him a 9 out of 10 for that one. But in the main race, of course, 10 out of 10. Qualified 1st, finished the race in 1st. Just managed it really well. Bounced back perfectly from the disaster that was the Australian Grand Prix. An average, of course, of a 10 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri, as he has started his title hunt in 2025. Lando Norris now. mixed. Lando Norris, the sprint race, dreadful. Really, really quite bad. Qualifies 6th, finishes up in 8th, but for most of the race looked like he wasn't even going to come away with 1 point because he was stuck behind Lance Stroll in the Aston. I gave him a 4 out of 10 for the sprint race. Then in the main race itself, qualifies 3rd, so a better result there, finishes up in 2nd place. And when you see how he was driving those last few laps with the brake issue that he had, you know, he lost 3.5 seconds to Russell on the last lap alone. An extra lap and he would have been off the podium, but the checkered flag saved him from there. He managed the car really well to bring it home in 2nd. Who knows if he could have challenged Oscar without the brake issue? I don't think he would have, because even before the brake issue, he really wasn't. So I don't think there was a discussion of Lando really winning here this weekend. I think 2nd was the best he could have done, but I still gave him a 10 out of 10 for that, an average of an 8 out of 10 for Lando Norris on the day. So there we go. There are our driver ratings for the Chinese Grand Prix. We have 10 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, George Russell, and once again, Lance Stroll. And the lowest scores of the day are 3s for Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly, and Jack Doohan. So both Ferrari lads and both Alpine lads. So there you go. That is our driver ratings. Driver ratings will return in 2 weeks' time for the Japanese Grand Prix. Tomorrow on the channel there is the Stop and Go F1 Retro Review 1981, the Argentinian Grand Prix. And on Friday there is the top 10 worst starts to championship winning seasons. If there's any news in the week, we'll have a recap of it on Saturday. Unless it's big news, we'll have a breaking news video. So still loads to come on Stop and Go F1. Subscribe for all of that. I will see you next time. Until then, have a good one. Goodbye.